Thank you very much, Valerie. Really appreciate this opportunity, and Vikki as well. Yes, it's David Hennessey here, and the program I created is a Wonder Technique, and I want to share with you today about the topic of this event, HIT, Hope, Inspiration, and Transformation. How do we look at these things? Hope is something that sometimes we cannot find in our lives. And I believe, and I will tell you a little story in a moment, that hope comes when we believe we can change and change for the better. And the key, as I will talk a little bit about, is that changes we need to make are holistic. They're not just one thing we need to change in our lives. Inspiration, when we are inspired, we need things to stay with us long term. And my friends, when you want something to stay with you long term, it has to be internally motivated. So think of inspiration, you've got the I for internal. And once it's an internal motivation, it becomes an eternal motivation because it rests within you. You're not dependent on other people around you. When we move towards transformation, I think of the word transformation, and sometimes in my mind, as I was just thinking about what I would share in this talk, I thought of transportation, because really we're moving ourselves from one moment in time to another. And the key to make any sort of transformation in our lives is taking action. Two simple words. Let me take you back to a little story I'd like to share with you to kind of put this in perspective. And then I'm going to share with you, as quick as I can, some valuable tools that you can use in your own lives. The first thing is that in 2009, I moved to France, and this was quite rapid when I did this. It was because my mother-in-law was quite ill. A number of things happened that were, to say the very least, life-changing for me. And one of the things I decided to do to manage stress in my life was to take up rock climbing. I've been hiking for a very, very long time, and I wanted to see what it was like to be able to go higher on the mountain. Like all of us want to make changes and make things better in our lives. I wanted to go higher in the physical mountains, but I knew I needed to be able to climb to the summit. So I started practicing climbing in a gym, and I had the habit of climbing up and always down climbing, which is quite unusual. Most people just kind of jumped off the wall and landed on the soft ground. And then one day, this was in 2014 in April, I remember it serves me correctly, April the 4th, for some reason that I don't understand, I actually jumped down off the wall and I made a serious mistake. I landed with my legs straight, and there was an electric shock that went through my body. And I didn't realize what I had done, because our bodies are incredibly resilient. But within 2 days, I was in the hospital getting a scan. And I always say to people, it was quite the experience. If anybody listening has ever had an MRI done, I think they were trying to torture me, because inside the MRI, they were playing publicities in French, which at that time, I wasn't able to speak fluent French. So it was really quite the experience for me. But that was only the beginning, because when I got out of the machine, what happened was that the surgeon, and it was really good, there was a surgeon available. He said to me, Mr. Hennessey, you've got a choice here. And my choice for you would be that you're operated on. You've did a double herniated discs in your back, and it's going to impact your way to walk. And he was right that I was going to have a challenge to walk. In fact, for 6 months, I wasn't able to walk without intense pain. Medication didn't work, but I chose not to have an operation. And this is where I want to share with you something that's extremely valuable. All the speakers have been talking about making changes and making movement in your life. I lay on the couch with my feet up on a cushion. I thought about my children. I thought about my family. And I thought, what can I do? Now, I've been teaching the Wonder Technique for 15 years prior to this, and I've been actively using it in my life. And I really believed that the holistic approach was important. But the key was how I was going to think about things. I needed to take action. I needed to focus my mind. And this is where I'm going to share with you something that's very actionable that you can take away in your life, because this is what I want you to practice, try out, test, maybe share with a friend. And this is this practice that I have, which I call framing the day protocol. Every day at the beginning and the end, I perform the following action. Perhaps you remember this experience when you wake up in the morning and you've got that kind of dazed feeling, you kind of that foggy feeling. Well, I want you to remember the acronym from the word BAT, B-A-T, beta, alpha, and theta. Beta is where we're at right now. I hope you're listening and your mind is active and you're receiving information. Then there's alpha, and then there's theta. Alpha and theta, as you're moving into sleep, that's the brain waves. And you start to get a bit drowsy, but this is when your brain is incredibly susceptible, your subconscious mind. So what you're thinking about at that moment in time, my friends, is extraordinarily important. You can take control of your mind when you recognize this. And what I do actually, to back up a little bit, before I go to sleep at night, and some of the speakers mentioned this already, I take the time to write down 5 things that I'm grateful for. It doesn't matter what it is. It might mean that I've food on the table, my children are healthy, I've got hair on my head. It's not important, but you're training your mind to focus on the positive. Because when you focus on the positive things somehow magically show up. And then as I go to sleep, as I start to drift away, I think about things that are really important to me, things that are valuable, my family, my friends, what I want to see in my life. That the key here is not to think of it in terms of words, but to actually start to visualize a film in your mind where you're seeing what you want to have happen as reality. And for those people who know me well, they know that somehow by practicing this over time, it makes an enormous difference. So remember that protocol as you go to sleep at night. Then first thing in the morning, I do the reverse order. I start thinking about what I want to see experienced in my life. And before I get out of bed, I write down things I'm grateful for. This is framing my day. It's framing my mind as to what I want to see happen. Now, if I jump forward in time, 2018, March the 7th, I got a call from a friend of mine after I started walking again a couple of years, and Dirk invited me to go and do a marathon. And I wasn't so sure because I'd never ran before. I'd hiked, but I hadn't ran. And I thought, what a wonderful test of my mind and my body if I could apply in reality what I've been training inside my mind for years. So I decided I'll go for it. Now, I'd forgotten at the beginning that March the 7th was when he called me. November the 11th was when the marathon took place. So I trained my mind as much as possible. And what actually happened was 1 month before the event, I injured myself. You know, if you ever slept at night and you twisted your knee or head, well, I twisted my knee and I was not able to run for the last month, but I rehearsed in my mind my ability to complete the marathon. And on November the 11th, 2018, I completed the marathon without a pain in my back, without a pain in my legs. And I realized that this framing of the day was something that was very applicable. So I shared this lots with people. Some of the other speakers have mentioned as I finish up here, what's really important, things don't happen overnight. It is truly a compounding effect. Just like in finance, it builds up over time. And I highly recommend that you frame your day with the way you want it to happen. And when you do this on a continual basis, you'll end up living the life of your dreams. I thank you, everybody, for this opportunity to listen. And I really appreciate you taking the time from your life, because you're giving me a piece of your life when you take the time to listen. Thank you very much, Valerie and Vikki, and everybody else.